There's a number every driver of anything tall keeps in his head, and it isn't his gross weight, and it isn't the hours left on his clock. It's his height. 13.6 on a dry van, higher on a reefer with the unit up top. And the whole job comes down to whether that number fits under the next piece of concrete, because concrete does not negotiate and it does not move over. Tonight we're counting down 15 underpasses in America that don't wait for a mistake. They manufacture one. They sit there at a clearance nobody expects, on a street your GPS swears is fine, and they take the top off your truck before your foot even finds the brake. We rank them from bad to the absolute worst, and every single one has hard numbers behind it or a reputation drivers and locals have been repeating for decades. One of these got so famous that a man set up cameras and has personally filmed every truck that's hit it for more than 15 years. And one of them made a wrong turn at 2 in the morning and killed 4 people who never saw it coming. That one's near the top. Let's get into it. Number 15, 5th and Brady, Davenport, Iowa. We start in the Quad Cities, right where the Mississippi separates Iowa from Illinois, because this is where a lot of drivers first learn the lesson the hard way. Davenport sits on a hill that runs down to the river, and threaded through the old downtown are a set of low railroad overpasses that locals stopped being surprised by a long time ago. The worst of them sits at 5th and Brady, a stone-faced railroad span on the exact hill every driver climbs coming off the river crossings. The trap here is geography. You're already turned around trying to figure out whether you're supposed to cross to Rock Island on the government bridge or the Centennial. Your phone is recalculating, and the road funnels you straight at a beam that was poured for horse wagons and boxcars, not a modern trailer. The reason it earns a spot is the sheer repetition. Local reporters have covered the same scene at 5th and Brady over and over. A semi wedged under the span at the morning commute. A chunk of trailer roof lying in the street, downtown backed up for an hour. It's happened so many times the newspaper just calls them the truck-eating bridges, plural, because Harrison Street has one too. For a driver, the cost is a peeled trailer and the special embarrassment of doing it in the middle of a small city where everybody with a phone becomes a photographer. If you're crossing the river through Davenport with a load, don't trust the car route. Look up the clearances before you drop off that hill, because the bridge at the bottom has been collecting trucks since before you had a license. Number 14, the W&A Trestle, Ringgold, Georgia. Down in the northwest corner of Georgia, right off Interstate 75 near the Tennessee line, there's a little town called Ringgold with a historic railroad depot, and right next to it, a low trestle bridge that crosses Highway 41. It looks like a postcard right up until a big rig tries to fit under it. This one made national news in 2024 when a photo went viral of a fully loaded Publix grocery truck jammed under the trestle, roof crumpled, boxed in with nowhere to go. The picture got shared hundreds of times inside a day, and the comments were the usual chorus of drivers who'd watched it happen to somebody else a dozen times before. Here's the honest mechanism at Ringgold, and every small-town trestle like it. There's a low clearance sign about a block out, but a block is nothing when you're rolling and reading the wrong screen. By the time the trestle is in your windshield, you've already committed, and Highway 41 doesn't give a loaded truck a graceful way to change its mind. The cost is a destroyed load of somebody's groceries and a driver standing on the shoulder waiting on a wrecker in a town of a few thousand people. The lesson from Ringgold is the one that runs through this entire list. The sign is always there. The problem is that a sign a block back can't out-argue a GPS telling you to keep going straight. Number 13, the Truck-Eating Bridge, Kirkland, Washington. Just east of Seattle in Kirkland, Washington, there's an overpass so reliably destructive that Google Maps lists it as a tourist attraction. That is not a joke. Search it and you'll find the Truck-Eating Bridge, complete with dozens of 5-star reviews from people who came to watch. The clearance is 11 feet 6 inches, and it carries the Cross-Kirkland Corridor, an old rail line from the early 1900s that's now a gravel walking and biking trail right over Kirkland Way. What makes this one special is that the community adopted it. Locals will tell you it stops a truck on what feels like a weekly basis, and there isn't nearly enough warning for the traffic coming at it. So the town did what towns do now. They turned it into a spectacle. People post the greatest hits. They leave reviews, rating the carnage. For a driver, though, none of that is funny at the moment your box truck's roof is peeling back like a sardine tin in front of an audience that showed up on purpose. The cost is your load, your deposit, and a starring role in somebody's weekend outing. If you're running a rental or a box truck through the Seattle suburbs, know your height and read the trail bridges, because in Kirkland, the locals are literally keeping score. Number 12, Sacramento Avenue, Avondale, Chicago. Now we get to a city built on this exact problem. Chicago has more than 1,700 low viaducts inside the city limits, not even counting the suburbs, and drivers who run the rail yards will tell you the only way to survive is to memorize a map that changes clearance every few blocks. One of the worst repeat offenders sits on Sacramento Avenue in the Avondale neighborhood, where the Kennedy Expressway crosses overhead between Nelson and Wellington. Neighbors who live yards from it say 2 to 3 trucks a month get stuck or shredded right there. One resident put it simply, not a surprise, not again. The Chicago trap is different from the small town one. It isn't that the sign is a block back, it's that you are threading a truck through a dense grid where the clearance drops and rises like a roller coaster, and a street that cleared you 3 blocks ago suddenly doesn't. Drivers turn onto a road that looks like every other road and meet a viaduct poured a century ago for streetcars. And there's an ugly modern wrinkle to it. When a delivery truck gets its roof torn open under a Chicago viaduct, the cargo is suddenly sitting in the open street, and in more than one case, crowds have shown up to help themselves before the driver's even out of the cab. So the cost in Avondale is the peeled trailer plus the very real chance your freight walks away while you're still calling it in. Learn the viaduct map or run a truck GPS that knows the heights. In this city, the one you memorized yesterday is not the one you're driving today. Quick pit stop before we climb higher. If this list saves even one of you from a 2-hour block of a downtown at rush hour, do me a favor and hit subscribe. It's free, and unlike that overpass, it will never rearrange the top of your truck. Number 11, Roxboro Street, Durham, North Carolina. We're going to spend a fair amount of time in North Carolina on this list, and there's a reason for that. The triangle is, pound for pound, the truck-eating bridge capital of America. We'll start with the one that gets overshadowed by its famous neighbor. On Roxboro Street in Durham, there's a railroad overpass sitting at 11 feet 4 inches. That's lower than the legal height of a standard trailer, which in North Carolina tops out at 13 feet 6 inches, and it's lower than a lot of box trucks and campers. Roxboro doesn't have the cult following, but it does the same work. It catches the drivers who dodged the famous bridge across town and figured they were in the clear, the ones following a car route through downtown Durham with a rental truck they've never driven before. The cost is identical to all the others: a sheared roof, a blocked street, a claim your rental insurance almost certainly won't cover, because overhead damage is the one thing those policies love to exclude. Roxboro is the warm-up. It's the reminder that in this one city, dodging the legend doesn't mean you're safe, because Durham has more than one bridge with an appetite. Number 10. Independence Avenue, Kansas City, Missouri. Kansas City's entry has a personality. The Independence Avenue Bridge in the northeast part of town was built in 1912, sits at a 12-foot clearance, and has been eating trucks so consistently that the city commissioned 4 giant murals to decorate it, and the neighborhood turned it into a folk legend. There's a Facebook page dedicated to documenting the crashes with more than 19,000 members, and the bridge itself has an online persona that brags, in the first person, about feasting on your wheeled steel boxes for decades and asks to be fed more. Behind the jokes are hard numbers. Police say as many as 40 trucks smashed into it in the years after 2020. The railroad that owns it says it gets hit about twice a month, so often that sometimes nobody even bothers to report it anymore. They've tried warning screens and flashing lights, and it slows some drivers, but the 12-foot beam keeps collecting. For a driver, the cost is the usual peeled roof, plus the honor of becoming the newest post on a page that treats your worst afternoon as content. Kansas City has decided to laugh at this bridge instead of fixing it. That's their right. Just make sure the next photo on that page isn't you. Number 9. Lake Street, West Side, Chicago. Back to Chicago because one entry couldn't hold it. On the west side, Lake Street runs under the CT, a green line, elevated tracks for miles, and the people who work along it describe the truck strikes like weather. One building manager who'd been there nearly 50 years said he's seen hundreds of trucks get stuck, and that when a semi jams under the structure, it feels like a mild earthquake inside the building. A local business coalition estimated at least 30 trucks got trapped in a single year on the stretch from Talman Avenue west to Laramie, more than 3 miles of clearance that rises and drops without warning. The head of that coalition called Lake Street the most dangerous and deadly street in Chicago, and described trucks getting trapped like rats and ripped apart like children's toys under the old elevated structure. That's the mechanism in a sentence. It's not one bad beam, it's a 3-mile roller coaster of them, with columns that block the sightlines so drivers and pedestrians can't even see each other, let alone the clearance ahead. The cost here isn't just your truck, it's traffic locked up for hours on a street that can't afford it, and, when the numbers finally go bad enough, a real safety problem for everyone walking underneath. If your route puts you on Lake Street with a tall load, treat every block as a new bridge, because it basically is. Number 8. The Bailey Bridge, Bailey, North Carolina. Back to North Carolina, and this time to the lowest bridge on the entire list. In the small town of Bailey, there's a railroad underpass built in 1907 with a clearance under 9 feet, reported as low as 8'6". That's low enough that a tall person on foot can feel the ceiling closing in. It is nowhere near tall enough for a box truck, a delivery van, a school bus, or an RV, and it has been quietly demolishing all of them. Locals say the Bailey Bridge devoured somewhere between 12 and 15 trucks in a single year, and it was only August when they said it. A recovery company in the area jokes that they're the official Bailey Bridge recovery team because the tows are that regular. Think about what 8'6" means. Durham's world-famous bridge, the one at the top of this list, is a full 3 feet taller than Bailey and considered a legend. Bailey is out here in a small town with a fraction of the traffic doing the same damage on a fraction of the chances. The cost is total. At that clearance, you're not clipping a corner of your roof, you're removing the whole thing. If a route ever sends you through Bailey, North Carolina, in anything taller than a passenger van, Stop and find another way because this one was built for a world that doesn't exist anymore. Number 7. The Peace Street Peeler, Raleigh, North Carolina. 30 minutes down the road from Durham, in downtown Raleigh, sits a bridge so notorious it earned a nickname on Google Maps. The Peace Street Railroad Bridge, carried by Norfolk Southern near Capitol Boulevard, has a clearance of 12'4", and drivers have misjudged it so many times that the crossing is literally labeled the Peace Street Peeler on the map, right there for anyone to see. Locals also just call it Raleigh's own can opener. The numbers are relentless and recent. Raleigh police counted 13 crashes in 5 years, and in the summer of 2026, the bridge went on an absolute tear. 3 trucks in a single week, 5 in a matter of weeks. Tractor trailers with their roofs torn half off. Trains stopped on the tracks above for 45 minutes at a time. Of those 13 crashes police logged, 10 came down to a driver who was inattentive or blew past a warning. And the warnings are there, multiple low clearance signs on the approach. Doesn't matter. A commercial driver who watched it happen called it flat out embarrassing for the profession. The cost is a ripped open trailer, a stalled railroad, and downtown Raleigh at a standstill. If you're running freight through Raleigh, Peace Street is the one every local already knows to fear. Now you're a local too. If you've winced at even one of these so far, tap that like button. The algorithm likes the way a low bridge treats a box truck. It takes everything off the top and doesn't say thank you, but at least this one helps you. Number 6, Memorial Drive and Soldiers Field Road, Boston, Massachusetts. Now we cross into a whole region built to trap tall vehicles, and I want to set it up properly before we get to the famous one. Along the Charles River in Boston and Cambridge, there are 3 parkways designed a century ago for cars and cars only: Storrow Drive, Memorial Drive, and Soldiers Field Road. This spot is the pair of understudies, Memorial and Soldiers Field, and they run the same con as their famous sibling. Clearances on these riverfront parkways drop as low as 9 feet, and the low bridges are stone-faced antiques never meant for a modern truck. What lands drivers here is the same thing every time: a phone. Standard navigation apps don't know or care how tall your vehicle is, and they route rental trucks and box trucks straight onto these car-only roads. One of the most shared examples was an oyster delivery truck from Martha's Vineyard that met an overpass on Memorial Drive and lost the argument. The cost is a peeled truck on a parkway with no shoulder to speak of and no good way to back out, which means you're not just wrecked, you're blocking one of the busiest commuter roads in New England. Memorial and Soldiers Field are the proof that in Boston, dodging the famous road isn't enough, because all 3 of them bite, and the famous one is coming up right now. Number 5, Storrow Drive, Boston, Massachusetts. Storrow Drive is so good at destroying trucks that the city turned it into a verb. In Boston, you don't hit a bridge, you get storrowed. It's in the Urban Dictionary. Local TV stations use it in headlines. The state's own parks agency made a horror movie video where trucks get storrowed like teenagers in a slasher film. That's how deep this runs. Storrow Drive is a cars-only parkway along the Charles, with clearances as low as 9 feet and a maximum around 10, while the rental trucks from U-Haul, Penske, and Ryder that pour into this city stand anywhere from 11 feet to 13.5. The math is impossible. Every standard moving truck that turns onto Storrow is going to hit something. And here's what makes it a genuine phenomenon instead of just a bad bridge: the calendar. Boston is a college town, and around September 1st every year, tens of thousands of students move at the exact same time. Locals call it Alston Christmas, and a fresh wave of drivers who've never touched a truck follow their phones straight onto Storrow. The old CSX Rail Bridge near the BU Bridge and the Harvard Street Bridge have been hit more than 30 times in a decade. The state has put up around 100 warning signs and spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on signage engineered to survive getting struck. They literally build the signs to take a hit. For a driver, the cost runs from a scraped roof to a full decapitation of the truck, thousands in damage, and a lane of a major road shut down while they winch you out. Storrow is a rite of passage in Boston, and it's one you do not want on your record. If you're moving anything through that city, stay off the river roads entirely. Every single one of them is cars only, and every single one of them is hungry. Number 4, the Southern State Parkway, Long Island, New York. This one is different from everything else on the list because the Southern State Parkway may have been built low on purpose. When Robert Moses planned this parkway in the 1920s to carry New Yorkers out to Jones Beach, the overpasses came out startlingly low. A historian who actually went and measured them found the Southern State bridges averaging under 9 feet on the eastbound side, with 4 of them under 8 feet, substantially lower than the parkways built before it. The reason has been argued about for decades. Moses' own biography quotes an associate saying the bridges were built too low for buses to pass, which in that era kept certain people off the road out to the beach. Whatever the intent, the result is a parkway laced with 1930s stone overpasses that a modern truck cannot survive. And trucks keep finding them anyway because a phone doesn't read history. New York's Transportation Department lists a whole family of these Long Island parkways: the Southern State, Northern State, Wantagh, Meadowbrook, Sagtikos, and more as too low for commercial vehicles. In a single April, one county tracked 13 unauthorized tractor-trailers on these roads, each one either backed off or already wedged under a bridge. And it isn't only freight. In 2018, a bus carrying high school students slammed into one of these low overpasses, a reminder that the danger was never just about cargo. The cost on the Southern State is a destroyed truck against an 80-year-old stone bridge, and sometimes people getting hurt. These parkways ban trucks and buses outright. If your GPS ever tries to send you onto one, that's not a shortcut. It's the app failing to understand that the road was designed to reject you. Number 3, Cascio Mill Road and North Chapel Street, Newark, Delaware. Little Delaware doesn't get talked about much in trucking, but the town of Newark holds 2 of the most struck bridges in the entire state, sitting close together and both starving. The North Chapel Street Railroad Bridge was hit 21 times over a 10-year stretch, which made it the second most struck bridge in Delaware. And the only reason it's second is that the even lower Cascio Mill Road Railroad Bridge, a short drive away, is first. 2 bridges, 1 small college town, and a steady diet of trucks. What makes Newark worth its high spot isn't a viral video or a nickname. It's that the state has thrown everything at these 2 bridges: signage, warning lights, years of engineering attention, and drivers still find them over and over, decade after decade. That's the quiet horror of the whole category. This isn't a problem waiting on a solution nobody thought of. It's a problem that survives the solutions. Newark did the homework, and the bridges kept eating anyway. The cost is the same peeled trailer and blocked street as everywhere else, but the lesson is bigger. If warning lights and 2 decades of effort can't stop it in a town this size, then no sign anywhere is going to save a driver who isn't looking. On these 2, and on every bridge left on this list, the only real defense is knowing your own number before you ever get close. Before the final 2, understand what separates them from everything you've heard. Up to now, the cost has been metal, money, and a ruined afternoon. The last 2 cost more. One cost lives. The other cost a reputation that will outlive everyone who ever drove under it. Here's the runner-up. Number 2. Onondaga Lake Parkway, Syracuse, New York. This is the one that should stop the jokes cold. On the Onondaga Lake Parkway just outside Syracuse, there's a truss railroad bridge built in 1971, originally over a canal that's long since filled in, carrying a CS6 freight line over a road at a clearance of just 10 feet, 9 inches. For years, it did what all these bridges do, caught the occasional truck, tore some roofs, made the local news. Then came the early morning of September 11th, 2010. A double-decker megabus, 13 feet and 1 inch tall, running from Philadelphia toward Toronto, missed its exit for the downtown Syracuse stop. The driver, unfamiliar with the area and later found to have been looking at his GPS, ended up on the parkway in the dark. There were flashing signs. There was reflective tape on the bridge, warning of the 10 feet 9 inches clearance. The bus struck the span anyway, and the roof peeled back, and the top deck took the impact. 4 passengers were killed, an 18-year-old, a 19-year-old college student, an IT specialist visiting from India, and a preacher, and roughly 24 more people went to the hospital. The driver was later charged with negligent homicide. In the years since, the state has logged more than a dozen strikes on that same bridge, and 1 year saw it hit 8 separate times. New York's governor eventually launched a statewide campaign, Check Your Height, Know It's Right, built in no small part around this exact bridge. The cost of the Onondaga Lake Parkway Bridge is written on 4 headstones. That's why it sits at number 2 and not lower. Every other entry on this list is a story about property and pride. This one is the reminder of what a 10'9" beam does when the vehicle that meets it is full of people. If you are ever routed onto that parkway at night in anything tall, you stop, you turn around, and you find another way, because that bridge has already proven exactly what it's capable of. Number 1. The Can Opener, Gregson Street, Durham, North Carolina. And back to North Carolina one final time for the most famous truck-eating bridge in America. The Norfolk Southern Railroad trestle over Gregson Street in Durham was designed in the 1920s and built in 1940, back when nobody was thinking about box trucks and tractor trailers, and for most of its life, it stood at a clearance of 11 feet, 8 inches. That number became its name, the 11'8" bridge. But everybody who's watched it work calls it what it really is, the can opener, because of the way that steel crash beam peels the roof off a truck like the lid off a tin of sardines. Here's what pushes it past every other bridge on this list. In 2008, a man named Jürgen Henn, who worked in an office nearby, got so used to hearing the crashes that he set up a camera. He has been filming that bridge ever since. His website and YouTube channel have documented well over 170 collisions, one roughly every month for more than 15 years, and the videos have a cult following, with hundreds of thousands of subscribers, individual clips pulling in millions of views. There is no other piece of infrastructure in this country whose destruction has been this thoroughly recorded. People all over the world have watched the can opener eat a truck. You've probably watched it yourself and didn't know where it was. Now here's the part that seals it. After 11 years of carnage, the city finally raised the bridge, but they could only lift it 8 inches because a sewer line meant they couldn't lower the road, and a nearby crossing meant they couldn't raise it further. So it went from 11 feet 8 inches to 12 feet 4 inches, and it kept eating trucks. Less than a month after the raise, a truck hit it. The website is still called 11'8", even though the bridge is taller now because the drivers kept coming and the beam kept peeling. Federal guidance says an underpass like this should have at least 14 feet of clearance. The interstate standard runs 16 feet. The can opener has never been close, and it never will be. So why is a bridge that's never killed anyone sitting above one that killed 4? Because number 1 on a list like this isn't only about the body count, It's about the legend, the one that defined the entire category. The can opener is the bridge that taught America that a piece of concrete can have a personality, an appetite, and a highlight reel. It's the one that got a documentarian, a cult following, and a raise, and still refused to stop. Every other truck-eating bridge in this country is measured against the one on Gregson Street. That's what makes it number one. The bridge that got famous by never, ever losing. So that's the map, from a hill in Davenport all the way to one steel beam in Durham that's been filmed more than most movie stars. Notice the pattern the whole list kept whispering. It's almost never the driver who should have known better in some grand sense. It's a sign a block too late, a phone that doesn't know your height, a load that changed your trailer by 2 inches, a wrong turn at 2 in the morning. The bridge doesn't need you to be reckless. It just needs you to trust the wrong screen for 4 seconds. Every one of these got its reputation the same way. Freight and rental trucks pour through. The clearance was poured for a world that's gone, and the beam collects what the signs couldn't stop. Now it's your turn. Drop the low bridge you personally will not go near in the comments, the underpass in your town that eats a truck a month, the one you learned about the hard way, the one a rookie running behind you tonight hasn't met yet. And if this list earned a spot in the map you carry in your head, subscribe. It's about the only thing left in this business that won't take the top off your truck. Until next time, know your height, read the beam, and keep the rubber side down and the shiny side up.